Oh, hey everybody. I wanted to come on here and talk about something the WWE recently announced this past week. It's a surprise to a lot of people. OTRS Central has talked about it. Solomonster of Solomonster Sounds Office talked about it. JD from NY206 has talked about it. The Lexman's talked about it. OK Fabe is going to be talking about it. And that is the return of the King of the Ring. Now, usually the King of the Ring has been mostly a one-night or two-night deal in recent years. I remember the last King of the Ring they did, it was a majority of Raw, majority of the matches on Raw were mostly King of the Ring matches, except the finals were held on the WWE Network exclusively after SmackDown. So basically, if you had the network and this was the one way of promoting it, you wanted to see the finals, the King of the Ring, you had to tune into the network. And the last one before that is the one that Sheamus won, and Sheamus won that on Raw. And a majority, like I said, a majority of the King of the Rings lately, the past three that I know of, have been mostly Raw or SmackDown exclusives. There were occasions that when they would bring it back, that just like they're going to do here, they would hold the finals on a pay-per-view, or the semifinals and the finals on a pay-per-view, and go from there. I do agree that the King of the Ring needs to have its own pay-per-view event down the line again, because even if it's part of the network, even if it's just a network exclusive, it should be something that they do, because this way, it gives. You could still do your matches, your focus matches, like your main event championships and all that. But the King of the Ring should be a focal point. And I think what the pay-per-view version of it did is the pay-per-view version would usually launch a lot of the stars. Would basically be a launching point for a lot of people you wouldn't think would be, promised the stars or anything. But in the end, they would get it. In the end, basically, like I said, they would get that opportunity and they would become stars, eventually when the time was right. So, with that said, we take a look at the brackets, and it's basically Raw versus SmackDown is what it is. That's basically what it is. It's Raw versus SmackDown. And a lot of people already predicting. I watched Solomonster's prediction video that he did. It was a clip from his podcast he did today. And he pretty much is already predicting McIntyre to win the tournament, which would make a lot of sense for Drew, because it would be a great launching point for him on pay-per-view. He's already launched into the stratosphere almost. He just needs that one moment in time, if you will, to break that glass ceiling. And the King of the Ring winning that could be it. A lot of others are predicting Corbin, which would make sense with his character. And, some would say Zayn, mostly a lot of heels. The heels that are in this are the ones being projected to possibly win. Because if there is any truth to the stats when it comes to winners of the King of the Ring, most of the winners, if you take a look at it from a statistic, easy for me to say, easy, like I said, easy for me to say. But if you look at it from a statistic standpoint, a majority of the winners that have become King of the Ring have been heels. You've only had a few baby faces in between, which has been good. Solomonster even looked up the statistics. Yeah, that's what it is. Not statistics, but statistics himself. And basically 11 out of the 14 winners have been heels who have won King of the Ring, which means only 3 baby faces have been King of the Ring. And that's astonishing. So you would think this would be the year they break it, right? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But basically it's a Raw versus SmackDown format. You got Raw represented by 8 superstars, SmackDown represented by 8 superstars. So on the Raw side, you have Cesaro taking on Samoa Joe Ricochet taking on Drew McIntyre, Cedric Alexander against Sami Zayn, and The Miz against Baron Corbin. Now, you would think that logically you need to have babyface heel matchups in the quarterfinals and in the semifinals. Logically, you would think that. And the same could be said for the SmackDown side. On the SmackDown side, you have Kevin Owens against Elias. You have Ali against Buddy Murphy. You have Chad Gable against Shelton Benjamin, which would be kind of interesting because they have a little bit of a history of being tag team partners. And Apollo Crews against Andrade. So the question is, who goes on to win? Now, Solomonster gave his predictions, and he pretty much predicts McIntyre to win because he feels McIntyre is literally going to get a bye in the tournament, just like Bam Bam Bigelow did back in '93. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't really think so. I think what's going to happen because of the fact that Samoa Joe, I don't think they know what they're doing with Joe right now. But if I was to predict anything, I would say Joe's going to beat Cesaro and McIntyre is going to beat Ricochet. That's my prediction. Or they could surprise. Here's the one thing Jason did say, Jason Solomonster sounds off, did say was, this tournament's unpredictable. It's like you could predict which way you think it could go, but that's just your opinion. And it's correct. This is completely up in the air, this tournament. Because these are guys that some of them already have stock behind them and some need a win like this or a victory in an event like this to really raise that stock up, if not skyrocket them even further. So when I look at Cesaro and Samoa Joe, I could agree with Jason's prediction that they could both get themselves disqualified and eliminated, giving the winner of Ricochet and McIntyre a bye. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Joe's going to win, and I think, my honest opinion, McIntyre wins due to AJ Styles interference, or I think Ricochet wins by upset. Like maybe AJ tries to interfere and it backfires and it costs McIntyre the match, and maybe that causes McIntyre to slowly turn against the OC, maybe turn face, who knows. A lot of possibilities can come out of this. I mean, Paul Heyman is high on Ricochet. I mean, there are a couple of guys here on the Raw side that Paul Heyman behind the scenes is very high on, and he's the executive producer. He's got some pull now. You would think he'd want Ricochet. So I'm looking at it this way. I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna say Samoa Joe and Ricochet in the quarterfinals. That's basically they're gonna win the first round matches. And then we got Cedric Alexander against Sami Zayn and The Miz against Baron Corbin. Okay. Now, Cedric Alexander is another guy that Heyman is very high on. Baron Corbin is someone I think he's kind of high on. He's in his main event picture, but not really. The Miz is kind of a Vince guy. So, I'm going to go with it this way. I'm going to go Cedric Alexander and Baron Corbin. That's what I'm looking at there. I mean, The Miz, if he wins, and this is the way I look at it. Again, this is where Jason is right. It's unpredictable. Because Cedric and Baron is, from a face-heel perspective, is the obvious quarterfinal. Just like Joe and Ricochet is. Or Drew and Cesaro, in a sense, maybe, because people still like Cesaro. Or Ricochet and Cesaro. It's unpredictable. So, Miz and Zayn is a good option, too. But I'm going to go Cedric, and I'm going to go Baron. And they might surprise us. They might say, you know what, no, we're going to go face versus face. Let the best man win. And that could happen too. So I'm going to go with, so on the Raw side to get to the quarterfinals, my picks are Ricochet versus Joe in the quarters, and Baron Corbin versus Cedric Alexander in the quarters. Those are my predictions. As far as who gets to the semis on the Raw side, I'm going to go Samoa Joe, because that could be when AJ interferes. And I'm going to go Cedric. That would make a great matchup right there. So on the Raw side to get into the semifinals, I'm going with Cedric Alexander and Samoa Joe. Now, I know people are thinking that's not going to happen, then WWE wouldn't do that. You could be correct. But if you have someone like Paul Heyman that, according to reports, is high on someone like Cedric Alexander and wants to push him, this could be the opportunity to do that. So, and you know what? You want to make people, believe WWE could still be unpredictable? Give them a semifinal on the Raw side they wouldn't see coming. And I think Samoa Joe against Cedric Alexander would be the perfect semifinal match. And then as far as who goes on to the finals, I would say you want to continue that push. I go with Cedric Alexander. But if you want to redeem Joe as a threat, as a legit threat and beast himself, go with Joe. So if you want to redeem Joe for everything you screwed him up on, according to a lot of fans, you put him in the finals. But if you believe that Heyman is behind someone like Cedric Alexander, then you put, and he wants to push him to the moon, you put Cedric in the finals. But I'm going to go with my risk take on it, and I'm going to say Cedric Alexander. Now on the SmackDown side, you got Kevin Owens against Elias, Ali against Buddy Murphy, Gable against Benjamin, and Apollo Crews against Andrade. Kevin Owens goes over Elias, unless they do the Shane screw job there and Elias goes over. I go with Buddy Murphy to go over Ali, or Ali to go over Murphy. This is the way I look at it. If they go with the Shane screw job right off the bat on Kevin Owens and Elias wins, then Ali's beating Murphy, so you get Elias against Ali, and then you have Kevin Owens interfere and cost Elias. Makes sense. So but I'm going to go with Kevin Owens and Buddy Murphy in the quarterfinals. I'm going to go with that. I do agree with Jason on that one. Chad Gable against Shelton Benjamin. I think both men need a win here. Both men haven't been really doing much. And the way they've been pushing this whole, what do you think, Shelton? What do you think? What's your thoughts? This is going to be a good match, but I hate to say this about Chad, but I think Chad's not going to win. Now, he could, which would be a surprise. It could set up a decent quarterfinal later on, but I'm going to go with Shelton Benjamin because they're pushing him in a way that's like, they're giving him these backstage vignettes, and it's like, what's going on here? So it would make sense, I think, you want to follow that up with a conclusion of Shelton getting into the quarterfinals. As far as who he faces, I'm going to say Apollo Crews. Again, just like with the other matches, I look at it this way. If Shelton Benjamin wins, he gets Apollo Crews. If Chad Gable wins, he gets Andrade. So I'm going to go and say it's Shelton Benjamin against Apollo Crews in the quarterfinals. Then, to advance into the semifinals, I look at it this way. If Kevin Owens doesn't get screwed until the finals, like Solomonster pointed out, I'm going to go with Kevin Owens in the semifinals. His opponent, I'm going to go with Shelton Benjamin. Because that's something nobody would see coming. So I go with Benjamin and Owens in the semifinals if they don't do the Shane screw job on Kevin before then. But like I said, if they do that and it's Elias that goes into the quarterfinals and Ali follows up by beating Murphy, then I say Ali goes to the semifinals and his opponent would be either Shelton or Andrade. Again, that's if Chad Gable beats Shelton, he gets Andrade. That's the only way I look at it. Because unlike the Raw side, if you take an exception of the Joe and Cesaro match, the most logical case for next round matches is heel versus face. So if they have Chad go over Shelton, Andrade's going over Apollo. If they have Shelton go over Chad, then Apollo goes over Andrade. You see what I'm saying? So I look at it this way. The semifinals on the SmackDown side are either going to be Owens against Benjamin or Ali against Andrade. And then who represents SmackDown in the finals? I think, honestly, it's either going to be Owens against Joe or Andrade, if they go with the heel option, against Cedric. That's my prediction. Because, again, if you take a look at the exception, you take a look at all the tournament matchups and how certain superstars will advance into the next quarterfinals and who potentially they could face, with the exception, if you will, of Antonio Cesaro and Samoa Joe, the most logical option is you're going to have babyface against heel one way or another, whether you like it or not. And it could be matches you don't see coming. But honestly, though, with that said, I do agree with Solomonster. This is unpredictable. This is probably, even though they're bringing it back after a couple of years, it's probably the most unpredictable King of the Ring they've done in quite some time. Because even though it's predictable that you're going to get face versus heel in any round, in most of the rounds, it's kind of unpredictable who they'll go with from a heel or face perspective. Anyway, I think it's great they're bringing it back. Yes, it's being done, obviously, for viewership and everything, because, people will never know what kind of matches they're going to get, especially with the semifinals being held on both the Raw and SmackDown editions that take place in MSG, Madison Square Garden. It is something to tune in for because you don't know what direction they'll go with here. And from the Raw side, if sources are to be true, reports are to be true, or are believed to be true, then I definitely see Ricochet and Cedric, mostly Cedric, right now as a heavy favorite to go all the way. But really, that's just my opinion on it. I mean, I'm glad it's coming back. Yes, it's unfortunately being done as a ratings grab. But I like the fact that it is a little bit bigger, like it used to be. I like the fact that it should be exactly what the tournament is always meant to be, unpredictable. Because now you don't know who they're going to go with. Like I said, obviously they're going to go with heel versus face in any of the rounds, period, no matter what. But you don't know what face or heel they'll go with to face each other. And that's the great thing about it. So really, that's all I can say on it, guys. But let me know what you all think. What are your thoughts on the return of the WWE King of the Ring? What do you think about the tournament itself, the participants? How do you see it going? What are your thoughts and predictions? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. And I will talk to y'all later.